All right. Well, hey, everybody, and welcome. This is Kenny,
Kenny squared.
and we've
Kenny
got a special
squared.
guest. We've got a special guest tonight. We have got, I'm going to call him a sports historian because he knows some sports history, and we're going to have some fun talking about some historic sports announcers. So we've got Mr. Larry Raab in the house tonight. Let's give it up. Welcome, Larry.
Hey, thanks, Kenny squared. Appreciate it. Good to be with you.
Well, this is the Sports on the Positive Tip podcast. So this is where we talk about how sports and Christianity mix together, and we're going to keep it on the positive tip. So speaking of the positive tip, I'm going to start with you, Kenny. What's the feeling like there in Cleveland? Really great game yesterday. Chiefs prevailed. They're going on to the championship game. Browns are going home, but that they had their first playoff win in 25 years, something like that. So what's the feeling like there?
I think it's in general like the sadness, especially after Mahomes got hurt, that shot. But I think everyone overall, like, I remember hearing something about it earlier in the week that like Baker Mayfield was pretty much playing with house money. If he played poorly, they still would have been satisfied with the season. If he played okay, or if they won, like people would still be happy. And I think in general, everyone's like, thank you, Browns. This has been the best season really in a long time. I really like what Baker said after the game, that this is a new standard. And I hope that that's truly the case. Browns fans are loyal. I look at the Bills going to the championship game, and they're really excited about it. They haven't been that far in almost 30 years. So I think in general, I think the feeling is sad, especially since they had a shot. They shouldn't have let Chad Henne run for 13 yards or whatever he did. But I think overall, it's been a good season. It's definitely something to build on.
Yeah, I agree, and I know Larry probably feels the same way. I said this a couple of weeks ago. I like when teams that were down for a long time rise back up. So it's good to see Buffalo also, rising up. We'll get to them in a second. Any big deal over that non-call? I thought that was a helmet to helmet on the fumble in the end zone there. You rarely see a fumble in the end zone and then it's a safety, and then the other team gets the ball back too, which is a really kind of a harsh rule, but it looked like it was a helmet to helmet hit. Are they upset about that, or is it just, hey, Chiefs won this, fair and square?
I think there's a little bit of, like, for me personally, I'm a little annoyed at that because, like, the penalty would have reversed it. They would have had a better shot at scoring a touchdown. But then also it's kind of one of those rules that doesn't come up that often. But, like, fumbling in the end zone, if you fumble anywhere else on the field, like, the team holds on to possession of the ball. I don't know if it's I don't think they'll change it. But I think some people are looking back to, like, wait, the Browns could have won if they scored that touchdown. But I think overall it's still, like, it's a good season. The Chiefs also, they're defending champions, and quite frankly, they look like Golden State. Like, they can kind of just turn it on whenever they feel like it, even with Patrick Mahomes getting hurt. So I think overall, people are still excited because it's been someone had posted on Instagram, wow, 3 January playoff games. Like, we could get used to, or 3 January games. Browns fans, we could get used to that. Like, it's been a while. So
interesting. I love to hear the perspective from there in Cleveland. And I agree with them. I think it was a really good year. So I think that's something definitely to build on. And so the Chiefs, though, I mean, they're so good, and they have, I think, a great coach in Andy Reid. And again, even though they won last year, it had been so long for them. They hadn't been to a Super Bowl since Super Bowl 4 when they beat the Vikings. I mean, so it's good to see them. I got to take them over Buffalo. Let's go real quick. The Drew Brees and Tom Brady game. What was your take on that game?
I didn't watch a lot of it because I was, tired. But I think, I don't know. Every time I feel like I'm voting against Tom Brady, he always proves me wrong. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's like some kind of like, did he have the fountain of youth or something? But it always seems like he's like always in it. And this is what his 14th AFC title or conference championship game. Guy is unbelievable.
It's amazing. Is he? Where do you put him historically, Larry? Tom Brady.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. He's got to be top 3, right?
Oh,
I don't know.
I think
Maybe,
yeah.
I don't know, maybe more than that. It's
Yeah.
and if he could pull it off this year, that without Belichick and all that, that would be quite the feat for sure.
Yeah.
What do you think Belichick's feeling?
Oh, he's. I don't know. Do you think Belichick really cares though? Do you think Belichick is even watching these games? I don't know.
I don't know. His public persona would say no.
Yeah. Yeah.
What game?
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I probably heard him that they didn't make even the playoffs this year because he probably felt like, hey, we could do it as more than just Brady, and I'm sure they are. But they had a lot of other issues as well. But Brady, I mean, if you measure by the championships, to me, he's right there at the top. I mean, I always thought Peyton Manning was right there. Dan Marino, but 6 championships. If he does it with this team, I mean, at 43 years old,
yeah,
game over for me.
Yeah. I was going to say that would pretty much cement it. It would be hard to argue against it.
Yeah,
even as a Jet fan.
I know. All right, so yeah, go ahead, Ken.
I think also like he would have, especially if they face the Chiefs, beating Breeze, Aaron Rodgers, and Patrick Mahomes in the same playoffs would be
amazing.
Would be big.
Yeah, amazing. All right, so who do we have? We have Packers, Tampa. We've got Buffalo, Kansas City. Who do we like to go to the Super Bowl?
We'd like to, or who do you think will? I'd love to see Buffalo. I mean, I was fine when they lost those 4 Super Bowls, because, I mean, we just always looked at them as they were the other New York team. But being that we don't really currently have New York teams now, I would root for Buffalo to win, I think.
Okay.
I don't know if they would, but
they got a shot. They're playing great. I mean, they pretty much dominated Baltimore. They're playing really, really well. Who do you think, Ken?
I hate saying it because I feel like I'm going to be wrong by saying it. I do want to see Buffalo. I want to see Green Bay too. But I feel like voting against Tom Brady is a mistake, but I'm going to go with it anyway.
Yeah. But Aaron Rodgers is just, I mean, he's just playing so well. They finally got him some weapons again there in Green Bay. So I'm going to say Green Bay, KC, but that was Super Bowl 1, I think, historically, right? I think that was Super Bowl 1. So a rematch of Super Bowl 1, KC and Green Bay. We'll see. Well, let's jump to one or two other quick topics that are currently happening, and then we'll get to our classic segment. That's what we're going to name it. We'll name it our classic segment. But so in the NBA, obviously a huge trade. The Nets land James Harden, a lot of players. The Nets, history repeating itself. They gave up, Larry, in case you don't know, they gave up, I don't know how many draft picks, like 4 number 1 draft picks. They gave up a couple of really good players.
Yeah,
I think
4 and
that's crazy, right? I mean, they did that before with Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett, and they were terrible for a long time, after that. So they're rolling the dice here again. But Harden's obviously different. He's younger, in his prime, still playing great. Kenny, what were your thoughts on that trade?
I'll give a very side note because it's not James Harden related, but guy now on the Pacers, Karis LeVert, he actually, when he got his physical, when they were like processing the trade, they found a mass on his kidney. So he's out indefinitely, like not affecting the trade or anything. But I think it's one of those things where, like, sometimes God works in very mysterious ways. Like, there's a good chance that he would have never gotten that physical until like next year. So like, even though, especially as like a young player, getting traded can be very like maybe not traumatizing, but it could be very like jarring. I think it's one of those ways that like sometimes God has your back and you don't even realize it. I when I saw that, I was like, wow, that's a really, and obviously I hope that he's okay and everything, but it really got me thinking like sometimes God really works in very mysterious ways. As far as James Harden goes, I'm still like, first of all, I think it's a trade that the Rockets had to make. I think he was just between completely slamming his own team, not showing up on time. Like you could tell that he was the guy that was just checked out. I think it does show though the power of the players in the NBA. I think if they can dream enough about wanting a trade, they'll get their way. I don't think that's necessarily a good thing because, like, yes, it's players that make the money. At the same time, like, it's important to show up to work. Like, Kyrie Irving also on the Nets, like, he just decides, oh, I'm not going to show up and then I'm going to go and party. Like, if I call in sick to work and then my Instagram story is full of me going out and having a good time, I don't have a job anymore.
Yeah.
So, and especially like, it's one thing to party. It's another thing to party during a pandemic where you're very in front of the public. So like, I think it's just very, I don't know, Kyrie Irving enough can be a little bit of an enigma, a little bit of a guy that's hard to get along with. Adding James Harden to that mix will make things interesting. So far, so good though. I mean, guy had a triple-double in his first start. But I think just in general, the idea of a guy demanding a trade, I don't really like it the way that it happened. Like, if you want to go as a free agent to wherever you want, like LeBron going to Miami, LeBron going to LA, I didn't love it, especially because of the way he did it. But still, it's within his right. But when you're under contract with the team and like you're basically forcing their hand, it's, to me, it's not a good situation. I think though the Rockets themselves up well. Victor Oladipo, they own the Nets draft for the next decade. Essentially, they have 4 picks and 4 swaps.
Crazy. Yeah.
So like, it's good, but I don't know. The thing to me is a little bothersome. I also like the article you sent. I'll let you kind of talk about that though.
Yeah, and I know Larry's going to agree with me. I know he's human because he hates in any sport when a player dictates that and they demand that they want to go somewhere. It's one thing, like you said, with LeBron, he's a free agent, he can do what he wants. But here's what I didn't like. So one of, I'm being sarcastic here, one of Larry's favorite writers of all time is Mike Lupica. And I actually like Mike. I'm a little bit different from Larry, but I think Lupica's columns are interesting to me. And he still kind of has I think he goes a little overboard. So the article, Larry, said that James Harden is now the poster child for spoiled NBA players. I guess to an extent that's true. Here's 2 things though that bother me. One was that Anthony Davis, who just seems to have a better character than Harden, right? That still was trying to play hard in New Orleans, but he did exactly the same thing 2 years ago. He was like, get me out of here. You guys aren't, filling the team with good players. We're not going to contend. I want to go to the Lakers pretty much, although I don't think he ever came out and said that. And he wound up sitting out like the last 20, 25 games. They sat him down. And so that gets forgotten about because Anthony Davis is generally looked upon as being a good guy. Whereas James Harden, for a while now, has been kind of a malcontent. He's kind of has the reputation he doesn't play good defense and that he disrupts the team and stuff like that.
That's yeah.
Well, yeah. But that's one thing I didn't like, that, hey, now he's the poster child, but he never said anything about Anthony Davis. The second thing is when I think about, labels and put on people, God never puts labels, on us, right? And that just bothers me that, okay, I know you're a sports writer, I know you're doing your job, but to say, hey, he's now the poster child for spoiled NBA behavior, there's been a lot of guys before James Harden that did that,
Right.
So
Kyrie did that.
Yeah.
In more than basketball too, in other sports as well. But just, if I could just read this real quick, where in in Philippians 2, because I was just thinking about this earlier, where Paul says, make my joy complete by being of the same mind, maintaining the same love, united in spirit, intent on one purpose. Do nothing from selfish or empty conceit or selfish ambition, as some versions would say, but with humility of mind, regard one another as more important than yourselves. Do not merely look out for your own personal interests, but also for the interests of others. Now, those of us that have a Christian worldview and believe that the Bible is real know that this isn't just talking about basketball and stuff, but this can absolutely be applied to, I think, a lot of the sports people today. Even when we get to talk about the announcers later, where it's so much about me, and who I have no idea who coined the phrase that there's no I in team, and yet you see so much of that. And I agree, free agency. I mean, I think it was a necessary thing. I think it was the right thing to do, but I think that's gotten out of hand as well, and to the point where they can force their hand. So now you're not even honoring the agreement that you made.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's so much else that's underlies that too. But yeah, I struggle with that.
Yeah. The other thing, the other thing that Larry, you may not know about James Harden, he's the highest paid player in the NBA. He makes more than LeBron James. In fact, they were paying him $40 million a year. I mean, the least you could do is show up, right? And show up in shape. And just
think.
Yeah,
happily. You would think
yeah,
happily.
You would think. And listen, if you want to get traded, why not just go to the owner, go to the general manager, say, this is my wishes. Until it happens, I'm going to play my butt off. I'm here 100%, but this is what I'd like, down the road. And then it's quiet. It's not out in the media. You know what I mean? Because then it is exactly what you say. It's selfish,
It's also as Ecclesiastes. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
As Ecclesiastes says too, it's chasing after the wind.
Yeah.
It's striving after the wind. It's not, and so I have no idea what James Harden's worldview is really. I mean, I could make some assumptions, but I can't really know what it is, other than by things that he would say in his actions or whatever. But a biblical worldview would hold that money is not going to satisfy you. And even the adulation of the fans in the arena, whatever, it's going to be temporary. That's not what the Lord's looking for us to worship. We are worshipers.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Hey, last quick thing on the Kenny's smiling because his Yankees re-signed DJ LeMahieu. So big deal, Kenny, or what?
Yeah, I was really nervous because they were talking about him looking at other people. I think it's big because he doesn't go to, say, Toronto, or they were talking to Dodgers. I know the Mets had kicked tires with him, but I think once they got Lindor, that was kind of a done deal.
Yeah.
But I think it kind of gives a little more confidence that they can go into the year. I would still say they're the East favorites, especially now that the Rays lost Blake Snell. And they're adding Corey Kluber, although probably at the expense of Tanaka. They're saying he's probably going back to Japan. But I think it's a really big sigh of relief, especially looking at all the Mets have done, looking at some of the other teams making moves, and Yankees are sitting there doing nothing. So it was really good to at least see something there.
Yeah, listen, I think I love bringing back LeMahieu. He's a great player. He's a winner. He's a winning ball player. He used to kill the Mets when he was with Colorado. So I'm kind of glad we don't see him that often. But the thing is, at Tanaka, I think that's going to be a mistake. I mean, Larry, we spoke about, you probably saw that podcast where we talked about, who are the best big game pitchers. And, we talked about guys like Bob Gibson, El Duque, Andy Pettit. Some of these guys that you just can't, you can't pay for that. There's just something inside of them. Tanaka, every year in the playoffs, he delivers. I mean, the Yankees are built for the playoffs. Why would you keep a guy like that? I don't know. That's just me. Kluber's very, very good if he's healthy, and he's pitched in the playoffs as well. But Tanaka, I don't know. That's a mistake, I think.
I agree.
They might know something about his health that we don't know about. So, you know.
Yeah.
All right, let's have some fun. Let's talk about all-time announcers. I think the three of us, I used to think it was just me until Larry and I started talking about stuff that noticed announcers, because I think a lot of sports fans, the announcer is there, the announcer's not there. And face it, none of us are going to watch a game because a person is announcing it or not, right? But they do it. To me, a good announcer enhances the game. I'll let Larry talk about his philosophy on good announcers because it's interesting. But I figured, why don't we do this? We could talk about some announcers from the major sports back in the 70s, let's say, and even we could bleed over a little bit into the 80s. And then, Kenny, you probably more than anybody your age, you've always noticed the announcers. Even when you were a little kid, you always noticed the announcers. So maybe we'll compare. You could talk about some of the announcers today that compare to that. So I figured we could start with Monday Night Football because that was a huge thing when we were younger. That used to be the event of the week. Monday Night Football was always the kind of the best matchup of the week, and it was a big deal. And so the original Monday Night crew was Keith Jackson, Howard Cosell, and Don Meredith, Dandy Don. After 1 year, Frank Gifford was able to get out of his CBS contract, and ABC snatched him up, and they moved Keith Jackson over to college football. Keith Jackson also was doing the NBA. We'll get to that in a second. And so then it was Frank Gifford, Howard Cosell, Don Meredith, and they stayed together for several years. Actually, Meredith left for a little while, Larry, if you remember, to go to NBC for a while. And I think he was at NBC for about 3 years and went back to Monday Night Football. So I thought they were a great crew. Larry, what were your thoughts on the Monday Night Football crew?
Oh yeah, it was fun. It was an event every week, and Cosell was he was so arrogant, but I still enjoyed him. Like I think he was. I'm great. I know I'm great. People. I think he actually believed, and it may be true to some degree, that people tuned in to listen to him. But it was a great event, and it was on too late. Even back then, I thought 9 o'clock was too late. Like I can't stay up till midnight on a school night.
Yeah.
But it was, they had a great chemistry, and Dandy Don would go off singing and singing some little ditty or something, and I think that drove Cosell nuts. I'm not positive, but I think it did.
Yeah. They were good. All right, Kenny, talk to us. Monday Night Football today. Steve Levy, Brian Greasy, and Louis Riddick.
Honestly, I think oh gosh, what's his name? The guy that's now at NBC.
Mike Tirico.
I think he was better. I don't really like the Monday night guys now are kind of mad at me. It might be shaken up a little bit because the Drew Brees is expected to announce his retirement, and they're saying that he's already. So my guess is he'll probably be the main guy on Sunday night, and they might push one of these guys out the door, whether it's Al Michaels, whether it's Chris Collinsworth.
Yeah.
And probably whoever that is will probably just go to ESPN.
Yeah.
That's just
okay.
That's my guess. I have nothing
so
on that.
Drew Brees may wind up on Sunday night, or you think he might wind up on Monday night?
I was just looking this up. They said that he's signed when he retires for NBC. So he would be Sunday night.
Okay. All right. NBC. Now Fox didn't cover football back then, so I think they came on the scene sometime in the 80s. So NBC, Larry, we had Kurt Gowdy was the main announcer for a long time through the 70s. He had a few partners. He had Kyle Rote. He had Merlin Olsen. For a while, he had John Brody. For a while, he had Don Meredith. But Kurt Gowdy was the guy if there was a big 4 o'clock game, Steelers, Raiders, you were going to turn on the TV and you would hear him. Thoughts on Kurt Gowdy and some of the announcers that was with him?
Well, let me ask a question kind of back to you guys. What makes a good announcer?
That's a good question. What do you think, Ken?
I'd probably say someone that doesn't get in the way of the game.
Woo!
Because like so often, like I feel like they make it very, like they have to have the call because they're a part of it. I think of John Sterling as guys like his where his commentary and his home run calls have to be a part of it. But I think for me, like a guy that can really like let the game flow and not just like make it all about them, or like there are times where, just be honest, guy needs to just shut his mouth, and yet some of these guys just talk way too much
Or
So-
scream way too much.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
So I've been a little
I
bit of
mean,
the
you-
opposite. Yeah. No, I was gonna say I've been a little bit opposite because I do like Gus Johnson and Kevin Harlan. Some of those guys that they think the game is about them. And John Sterling, I actually kind of like him, but I know where Larry's going though. And so, Larry, what's your idea of a really good announcer?
pretty much what Kenny said, but you know what I like, let the game breathe. For one thing, when you're on TV, I mean, what I mean to say is when you're watching a game on TV, it's different, obviously, than if you're listening to it on radio. And I think some of those skills of the TV commentators are lost. Like it's different when, like, remember when the baseball guys did 3 innings of radio? I mean, like they did 3 innings on TV, then they went to radio for 3, then they came back again. And they had to announce the game differently because now you had to be the eyes and the ears, so to speak, of those of us that were listening to you. But these days, even on TV, I mean, honestly, just to put it blunt, man, they just don't shut up. That's what my opinion is. And whether it's a pregame show or it's a postgame show, it's a halftime show, or they're announcing the game, it seems like honestly, it seems like sometimes the announcers are as bad as the players. It's like Kenny said, it's kind of like about me, and I got to make my signature. And I think they're supposed to be like journalists. They're supposed to report what's happening. You know what I mean? And let it be.
Yeah.
And I don't think that happens. So like, go watch who is one of our favorites, Pat Summerall, right? Pat Summerall. I mean, go listen to him. Just get a clip from a Super Bowl game. And I don't want to say he never raises his voice because he does, but he's not screaming. I don't think the guy's ever screamed when he was announcing.
I never. Yeah.
And it was very powerful. You let the game speak for itself.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point. And Pat Summerall, he didn't get teamed with John Madden until the early 80s. Madden was like to fill every second. I think they were a perfect pairing because Summerall was so low key, and Madden was the opposite. Madden became this kind of larger than life figure. But Madden was always like dead on in his commentary too. And so, who do you think, Kane, would be an announcer now that is sort of like a Pat Summerall? And again, you probably don't remember him, but he was just kind of low key, would just call the game and he'd get out of the way. Who do you have like that now?
Part of me would probably say Al Michaels, although sometimes he might get a little bit in there, but I think Al Michaels does a good job. Maybe Jim Nantz too.
Yep, I have Nantz on the list too. Yeah,
Jim Nantz
for any
absolutely.
sport.
Yeah, I agree. I think Jim Nantz does a phenomenal job. I think he's a throwback type of announcer, but he fits in today as well. Al Michaels is generational. I mean, he in like the late 70s when ABC got baseball is when I first heard him, and he was on Monday Night Football for a long time. And but he's a great baseball announcer as well. And so so the national baseball announcers. So you mostly had Kurt Gowdy, and he was teamed early 70s with Sandy Koufax, with Pee Wee Reese, Maury Wills. They like putting the Dodgers on there, the ex-Dodgers.
Yeah.
But then obviously Tony Kubek, I think, teamed with him in '72 when they were for a long time together. Then Joe Garagiola. What were your thoughts on the baseball announcers back then, Larry?
I love those guys. you know, whether it was This Week in Baseball or, you know, well, not This Week in Baseball. What was the Saturday game? The national
Yeah,
game.
game of the week. The game
Oh,
of the
Game of the
week.
Week, right? That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah,
This Week
yeah,
in Baseball was Mel Allen, right?
yeah,
So, but yeah, those guys were great. And I love listening to them, especially when the playoffs came around. You knew you were going to get to hear a guy like Garagiola more. And he was kind of like Tim McCarver before Tim McCarver was Tim McCarver, I think, you know, in terms of telling you about the game and what you could expect. I think he was funnier than McCarver. But you know, he's a little bit more of a character. But yeah, I
yeah,
enjoyed them a lot. And Kurt Gowdy, again, Kurt Gowdy was just very even keel. You
yeah,
know, pretty. I mean, just yeah. Kubek yelled. Kubek
yeah,
Kubek was a little bit of an early yeller, you know,
yeah.
but
He used to
not
be good.
terrible.
Yeah, yeah. Kenny, I think I know who your favorite tandem is in baseball. But I'll let you say, taking out the local guys. Who's your favorite national guy?
Well, probably by default, probably Joe Buck and John Smoltz. I like Joe Buck and Tim McCarver better. Sometimes John Smoltz can be a little much, although his analysis is pretty good. I don't really like the ESPN guys. Matt Vasgersian to me sounds like every other announcer, and A-Rod, like I really want to like A-Rod because like he's a Yankee guy, but I can't see like for a
Horrible,
guy that
man.
like is supposed to be good, he's not.
He shouldn't be allowed on there.
No.
Him and Joe Morgan.
Well, and see, I thought you were gonna say Miller and Morgan was your favorite guy.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, in my lifetime, yeah. I thought you were talking about right now, but yeah,
Well, yeah.
I like Miller Joe Morgan better.
That was also you. You used to always ask, "Could you stay up and watch Sunday Night Baseball?" Even in the summer, Bobby wouldn't let you stay up. But I thought they were great. Now, Larry, you were never a big Joe Morgan guy. You thought he talked too much.
I loved him as a player. Loved
Yeah.
him as a player. Yeah. Not as an announcer. You're right about that.
Well, so
No.
who do you think was the better analyst? Was it Kubek, McCarver, Morgan? I know you're not going to say Morgan. Who's and John Smoltz is very good, I think. Now
Smoltz is good. Kubek, I don't remember so much. I mean, I remember him, you know, as a good color guy, but I don't really remember his analysis so much. I mean, kind of young, really, to some degree. McCarver was one of the best at analyzing, I think.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
he was very good. Costas, though, you got to throw Costas into the national baseball
Yeah.
conversation.
Oh, now he's still announcing.
He's a
games.
great host. Anything that he hosted, you know, I thought was very well done, including the Olympics.
Yeah,
You know?
and Costas, if you remember when Marv Albert, you know, we'll get to basketball in a second, but when Marv Albert had some controversial stuff and he got, you know, off of NBC for a while, Costas stepped in. He did a great job doing the NBA. He had a big game feel to it. It was him and Isaiah Thomas for a couple of years, believe it or not, and they were very good. They actually were very good. And so yeah, so who do you think, Ken? Out of you've heard a lot of McCarver. I wish McCarver was still on actually, because he's still announcing games. And he announces Cardinal games. You know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's still like locally with the Cardinals, I think. But who do you think is the best analyst? We're back. Ken, you there?
Oh, I'm there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. I think out of like the former players, probably Tim McCarver would be the guy. I think he was really good at like, especially like right after something happened. I remember one where like someone had just hit a home run and he was like, well, yeah, the guy knew it was a fastball because of the way that the pitcher kind of tipped it off without tipping it off. So I think that was I think he's probably the top guy there. John Smoltz is really good with the like knowing the analytics nowadays. But sometimes he could be a little much. And sometimes he kind of doesn't sometimes he's a little too analytic driven, which is kind of funny because that's not how he was as a player. But yeah.
Yeah. All right. Got a few minutes left. So how about basketball? Who is it? Marv Albert? Is it Dick Enberg? Is it the team today? Mike Breen, I think is
I like
great.
Mike Breen.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Marv is great, and he made it back.
Yeah.
No pun. Never mind. But the and I mean, Clyde's got to be one of the best
Oh,
as far
yeah.
as a
Yeah.
color guy. John Andreesi was good though, right?
I thought so. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a long time, right? How long was he? But was he all local? Was he always local?
I don't think he ever did national. I think he was all local. I think he was all Knicks. Yeah. Yeah. Who do you got? I mean, there's some good guys on TNT as well. Kevin Harlan.
Kevin Harlan's okay. I think Mike Breen's the guy.
I think so,
although like a lot of the big calls I can think of, like the blocked by James, that's the one that everyone loves here because that was like the clincher. But I think overall with him, like he's a good guy to kind of just like let things happen as it happens, but he also really knows his stuff too. Something I did notice, I feel like something that he's adjusting probably with everyone on the road games, him not being like there, I feel like is kind of throwing him off a little bit. But I'm assuming that's probably every commentator in the country. So
I'll throw this in real quick. For me, college basketball, best all-time team is Dick Enberg, Billy Packer, Al McGuire. I think Jim Nantz was great with Billy Packer as well, but they didn't really have Al McGuire, who was crazy, But
yeah,
they were a lot of fun to listen to, But Jim Nantz is great. I mean, it's a big Final Four game when his voice comes on. Hey, so what
Iron
about
Eagle's good too?
Who's that? Oh, Iron Eagle is really good. Yeah.
I was going to say Iron Eagle. I enjoy him a lot.
Yeah. He does.
What do you think about Brent? Is Brent Musburger in that conversation? I mean,
Brent. Brent found his niche, I thought, in college basketball. As early days in the NBA wasn't that good, I didn't think.
He did the big football too, right? Didn't he do a bunch of big football too?
He did on ABC.
He did college football.
He did college football for a long time on ABC. I thought he was good. Let's go Herbie. He always was with Kurt Herbstreit, and so I thought, Brett is funny. He's got a little complicated legacy as well, because the way he went out wasn't great, and they kind of replaced him very quickly, on college basketball back at CBS. But I put him up there. He was very good, I thought. He worked hard.
Right.
He was his latter years at ESPN. I mean, you could turn on a Tuesday night and Iowa against Iowa State, he'd be doing the game. He just liked to work.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
I'm like, oh, is that Brent Musburger on this a random Tuesday night college basketball game?
Right.
No, I agree. He was good. Larry, who was some hockey? I mean, we know Doc Emmerich as kind of the standard bearer for hockey. I mean, it's he's not there this year for the first time in a long time. But who were some other great hockey announcers, and what were your thoughts on Emmerich?
Well, Marv way back when too,
Yeah.
And but Tim Ryan was great. Gary Thorne. I didn't know he did hockey till after he was doing the Mets already. I don't know if he would, if one. I mean, obviously one preceded the other. I don't know which one did. But when I started hearing him do hockey, he was a really good hockey announcer, I thought.
Yeah.
Howie Rose Howie Rose very good in baseball and hockey. I think he's very good in both. Especially as because I think even though he's a current guy, I think he's more along the lines of a throwback in the terms of the way he does his announcing.
Yeah.
So and Sam Rosen. I mean, I know I'm a Ranger fan, but I gotta love Sam Rosen. He's been there. He's been doing it for I don't know how many years.
He's still on, right? Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Yes.
He's good. I liked him. Yeah. He's really good. He does some football too. Or at least he used to.
Mm-hmm.
He used to do some Foxy games. Yeah. Yeah. He's good. Gary Thorne, I always remember stick, save, and a beauty. He would always say that, right? Gary Thorne. That was one of his, yeah, kind of his
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, he was good.
Yeah.
So,
But hockey, I think you got to be so on your game, because the sport moves so fast.
so
Especially
fast.
if you're
It's
doing,
so fast. Yeah.
especially if you're doing it on the radio. So
I wonder if Kenny, do you know, are they doing that? Are they doing the hockey? What I mean to say is, are they traveling to do hockey, or are they doing that from at home too? Because that would be even harder, I think, than maybe basketball.
I think
Yeah,
it's.
I don't know.
That's a good question. I think they're from the arena, the home team, and if they're road, they're doing it from the studio.
Yeah, wow, that's got to be hard.
It's got to be really hard. Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, hey, let's wrap up. We're just about at 40 minutes. This was a lot of fun. The time flew by. So Larry, would you come back?
Sure. Yeah, it was fun.
I thought Larry was going to say, how much are you going to pay me? To come back. Well,
Gina's laughing over there.
Yeah, you hesitated. Like, should I negotiate now? Yeah. Well, hey, we'll do another class.
It'd have to be something uncomfortable. That's what I gotta say. It'd have to be something I'm comfortable with, because I don't know stuff the way you guys do. That's for sure. You need my brother on for that.
We got to get your brother. I got to tell Kenny about it.
He knows sports like you.
Got to get John on. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, Kenny, why don't you close us out?
All right. So this is Kenny Squared and
Kenny. And
Larry.
With sports on the positive tip. We hope you guys have a great week, and we'll see you next Sunday.
Awesome.